Hi and welcome to the Gemhawks YouTube channel. I hope you're having a beautiful day today. For today's beginner friendly tutorial we are going to make pear drop shape earrings. Now each one of these takes a single bead and two short lengths of very commonly available wire. Let's head down to the board and take a look at today's project. Very easy to achieve in just a few minutes with very limited materials, and the pear drop is a shape that appears in jewellery constantly. It's an absolute classic. So let's head down to the board, we'll have a look, and then we'll make a pair of earrings together. So this is today's project, a simple but elegant pear drop shape. Now I've expressed this as a short drop earring, very elegant in its form, but you can equally add to that chain or links or whatever you fancy to make a very long dramatic drop earring. The materials I'm using is a beautiful amber coloured glass bead from Jessie James. I've also got a little link that I just made with a single 4mm gold colour bead and a length of heart chain, which I've had in stock since forever. So those bits and pieces you can add in if you want to. The main part of today's tutorial is going to be this super simple, very achievable pear drop shape. I'm working with quite a firm brass wire, which for earrings is no bad thing, because it means if you accidentally catch them a bit, they shouldn't lose their shape too much. I have a 4-inch length of 1mm or 18 gauge wire. And this, as I mentioned, is quite a firm wire, but you could use a medium. The only one I really wouldn't use is a very soft wire. Now, my bead is an 8mm bead, and I have a 10mm form. So a chunky pen, something like that, is really ideal. If you don't have a professional wooden mandrel, don't worry. So this doesn't quite warm the same way as copper does, but if you are working with a beautiful copper wire, then give it a quick smooth through. And then just to the edge of the middle, I'm going to create a rounded form. So you can see I've got just under an inch of extra wire on one side, and the other side is much shorter. So let's just cross those over a little bit more. When you're making earrings, it really does pay to make them side by side so you can ensure that your pear drops are going to be exactly the same size. Because I'm going to be expressing this as a pendant to add alongside my earrings that I've already created, I'm not overly worried if it's identical. So the shorter side, we're going to grip at the crossover point and just turn that into an upright bend. So if you imagine a straight line going from the very bottom of that curve up through the middle, you will want this to be an extension of that straight line. I'm just going to flip over to the long side of wire. I'm going to grip from underneath so you can see what's happening at that crossover point and pull that over to one side. Just going to give that a little bit of warmth. It's incredibly chilly here today. So you can see we've got a right angle and a straight up. So we've got 12 o'clock and 9 o'clock expressed on clock hands. What I'm going to do is to grip at that angle change on the longer piece of wire. If I show you that from above, I'm going to push that all the way around. Now the reason I grip across the angle change is it gives me about 1mm of space just to get that wrap started. Once the wrap is started, I can grip across both sides of the pear drop at the neck, and then I'm going to draw this wire all the way around. Now I'm gripping quite firmly across these two shoulder wires, but I'm not gripping where the wire crosses over itself. So if you're making earrings, theoretically that's what I'm making right now, you'll need to have the same number of wraps on both sides. So I'm going to just take that around one more time. I think there were 5 wraps, making sure that I'm not accidentally eating the wire, not literally, but pulling it into the wrap. So I'm just going to tighten that up quickly, go back to gripping very firmly and push that wire around one last time. Like so. Now when I'm making earrings, what I tend to do is I'll make them stage by stage, side by side. So I will have the longer side going across to 9 o'clock on the front, and then I will have the longer side going across to 3 o'clock on the front. And in that way you get perfect symmetry in your earrings. Let's just tighten this little wrap up before we flip to the rear of the design, find out what it is I've done with my flush cutters and trim away any excess. The reason I put my finger over the end is to stop it pinging up into the camera. Now what we need to do is to tuck this last little bit away. So you can grab a second pair of pliers if you struggle with grip strength, or if indeed, like myself today, you're working with a very firm wire. And what I'm going to do is to squish that down so that it sits very flat against the core. So we now have that lovely pear drop shape all ready to go. You will need to make sure that your wrapping is neat and tidy and tight. So just take a second to make sure that your coils are very, very nice. Please be careful if you're gripping like that you don't slip and pinch your fingertip. This is something that I have done. So just take your time and don't rush. Once you're happy that everything is sitting down neatly, I'm just going to pull the wire over to one side and make a simple loop. I'm going to be using the 2mm pin on my memory wire finishing pliers from Beadalon. And I'm just going to start rotating that wire around. Now I've tucked the end just past where I want it to go. Find those flush cutters again, they disappeared. And that wasn't on purpose, it's just I had a tiny smidge more wire than I needed. So do be careful with your fingertips. They're quite difficult to repair. So I'm just going to reshape and make sure that that loop sits neatly at the top of my little spiral. And there's your perfect pear shape ready to go. Now, if you're lucky enough to have a collection of beads that are the same design or material in different sizes, then absolutely do make a pendant version. What I would say is if you're making a pendant and you're going to be using a larger bead, you'll obviously need more wire. But not only that, I would recommend using a good 6 or 7 inches of that 1mm 18 gauge wire to create the pendant, because it means instead of a simple loop, you can create a wrapped loop, and that will be, instead of flat in the same orientation as the pear drop, it will be at 90 degrees, so you can wear it on the neckline on whatever chain or threading material you like. Now I have just a scrap length of 0.5mm or 24 gauge wire. Now it is a commonly available wire. You can, if you don't have it, use a 0.6 22 gauge or a 0.4 26 gauge. However, this is the absolute perfect size, dimension, gauge, however you want to think of it, because it offers strength and visibility but without too much weight. So I'm just going to centralise my 2-inch length of that 0.5 or 24 gauge wire. I'm just going to centralise that over the lower portion of the pear drop shape that we have formed, and I'm going to bring the tail around the outside, tuck it up the centre, and then wrap neatly the same number of times as I did on the other, which I think is 5 times, but I could be wrong. Should be getting some new glasses any day soon. So excited. So that's 4 times. Let's go once more. Take that all the way around. Now when you're creating earrings, especially, even more so than neckline pieces, you will want to be sure that you trim the tail of wire away as far as humanly possible. So what I'm going to do is just tuck the very last section I've trimmed away as close as I can to the inside of that pear drop, making sure that I squish that wire flat inside the pear drop shape itself. So let's go back to the face of the design. I was going to pick up the bead that was already attached. Well, my brain is mush. So let's find the bead aperture, slide that on and push it into position. So what we need to take note of is that the spiral of wire is going away from my thumb, so I need to match that on the other side. So let's push the tail up inside that pear drop shape, and you can use your pliers to help you get purchase on that should you need to. So I am going to go for 5 wraps. Make sure you don't stick the end of the wire up your nail. Having done that 1 or 2 times in my last 16 years of working with wire jewellery career, really don't want to do it again, and I certainly don't want you to do it. So we've got 1 more wrap to go. I'm going to look at the rear of the design, and I'm going to cut just past the outside with the flush side of my cutters, and that will enable me to tuck that last little bit down inside that pear-shaped frame. Now, what I like to do with this design is to bring the bead down to the base as much as possible, and then you can put a bend in the little section of wire as it comes out of the bead hole. Now, it happens really quickly. All I'm doing is I'm drawing those spirals of wire down towards the lowest part of that pear drop, and then it just sits so beautifully. That is it. It takes minutes. It takes pennies or cents worth of wire. Whichever beads you fancy you can use, and then you can add in little extenders, you can add it to chain, or you can pop it directly onto your ear wire if you prefer. So I think I'm going to reassemble with chain. So that's just a very simplistic rosary link. If you want to see how to rosary link, check out my video from 6.5 odd years ago now up here, and you'll be able to see how to do a wrapped loop rosary link. All I've done here is just made simple loops. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments below if you want more fast and easy tutorials or if you want more in-depth masterclasses. I don't know what you need, so you tell me in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, all of the socials. It really does help me to be seen if you do those things, and it doesn't cost you a bean. If you do want to support me, then you can absolutely become a member or hop on over to buy me a coffee. Everything is linked at my link tree, which is down in the description below. Take care and have a beautiful day. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.